Mr. Trudeau, kaya ditya. Ay, si hoya pasades si Sanutin. Ne hawat tam ye si ni no nia no desni saulik sausik sai. Sa ne hutli. One of Jitjani at needy, no sadidi, when the world is a kind of Hana Tisutasi, Skaka Papi, no Kai Hapapi, any happy etc. Which all the here do by each stick on sign of destiny. Good day. I am Was, House Chief for the Grizzly House. I want to thank the Indonesia people and the leaders here for welcoming us into their land. And their hospitality was great. I have with me, we're all here together, Klungan, Tayu, Smokaskem, Lahtamashu, Hauskat, Hunesutan, Kastewe, Gidamdan. We come a long ways, not only the distance that we travel, and we heard Prime Minister Trudeau just a little while ago talking about the inconvenience that Canada has suffered. However, there is a difference between inconvenience and injustice. Total difference. Don't confuse one with the other. There's a big difference. He did mention the historic wrongs of the past. And he did mention a few things as well that I will go through. Today, the Mohawk people and the Wet'suwet'en people stood in solidarity at the Mohawk Council House in Tienenega to affirm that they will not stand by and watch while Wet'suwet'en title and rights over their lands are ignored, and while human rights abuses continue to happen in the Wet'suwet'en territory. Contrary to the announcement by the BC RCMP on February 20th, 2020, that they are withdrawing from Wet'suwet'en territory. The hereditary chiefs of the Wet'suwet'en confirmed at the meeting that the BC RCMP and the CIRG have in fact increased harassment, made illegal arrests, increased surveillance, and monitoring of Wet'suwet'en people and their invited guests. This is completely unacceptable and far from the show of good faith and contradicts an announcement by the BC RCMP. Both the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs and the Mohawk people of Tienenega remain deeply concerned by the myriad of laws that Canada has broken, including Wet'suwet'en law, the Canadian Constitution, the Supreme Court of Canada, Delgamuukw decision of 1997, UNDRIP, and the Geneva Convention on Genocide. They want to remind Canada and the world that Wet'suwet'en land was never ceded or surrendered, and as such, Canada's actions amount to an illegal occupation in Wet'suwet'en territory. They also want to remind the Canadian government that the rail line shutdowns could have been ended many days ago if only Canada, BC, CGL, and the RCMP had honored their own laws as well as the respected Wet'suwet'en laws. The Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs have put a path of peace forward in order that nation-to-nation discussions with Canada and BC may occur freely and without duress. We demand the remote detachment, community industry, Service Office established by the RCMP on Wet'suwet'en territory without our consent be immediately removed, and that the RCMP are completely removed from our territory and cease patrols from our lands. Out means out. We demand that all CGL activities cease within Wet'suwet'en territory while nation-to-nation talks are going as present to the eviction notice that was delivered to them on January 4th, 2020. We commit to entering into a nation-nation discussion with Canada and BC once the two above demands are met. And we insist that these discussions occur, that they will be held on Wet'suwet'en territory to ensure inclusivity for our nation, Denise and Zakaise, the hereditary chiefs, and the members that we are accountable to, and in accordance to our law. The meeting today came on the heels of the 9-hour meeting between the Mohawk people and Tenega and the Minister of Indigenous Services, Mark Miller, on February 15, 2020. All sides have said are keeping the discussions open and remain hopeful. Since the beginning of the Mohawk people of the Tenega have stated their willingness to allow the trains to pass through their territory and remain committed to do so once it is verified by the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs and their appointed legal observers that the BC RCMP are indeed out of the territory. Upon confirmation, the Mohawks have agreed to negotiate the peaceful exit plan as agreed upon between the Mohawks and the Minister of Indigenous Services Canada, namely Mark Miller. The Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs also want to reiterate to Minister Carolyn Bennett and Mark Miller that they remain willing to enter into a nation-to-nation talks once the RCMP is out of their lands and all work by CGL has ceased. This we will remain committed to. With that, we'll open it up to questions.
I'll reiterate what my people said, is that the blockades, which there are none, that we will allow trains to pass through our territory once the RCMP have been removed from the Wet'suwet'en territory and that it has been confirmed by the hereditary chiefs of their nation, and not before then.
Yesterday, John Morgan said that having CGL stop work is a non-negotiable, that's not going to happen. What's your reaction to that position?
I think our stance remains similar. Right from the beginning, we said we wanted them to come in and talk with us. We have a process called WAPOS. We definitely wanted them to come. And just for your information as well, when we announced that we were going to sit down with Mr. Horrigan, Mr. Scott Fraser came in with his colleagues, and they ended up doing the discussion with us. So it wasn't very productive at that time. On our part, it was.
The Prime Minister today said that they've exhausted all avenues the government has, but they can't have dialogue when only one party comes to the table. I wonder what your response to that is.
Contrary to what we're saying right now, nation to nation. We're open to it. And I think it's a matter of public opinion as well. That's what he's saying. But at the same time, if he's willing to sit down with us, we are open to that, providing that the RCMP get out of our territory.
Chief, one of the ongoing narratives of these protests is one that is anti-fossil fuels. It's an environmental argument, and yet when you look at the protesters, the blockades, they're using fossil fuels to keep warm, to fuel their vehicles. Is there not a degree of hypocrisy there?
I don't want to get into any psychological attrition, so I can't comment on that.
Chief, can I just clarify your demands? To sit down with the federal government, is that to have the RCMP leave entirely and CGL stop work?
Exactly.
Okay.
Is there a chance that we won't see the encampment?
It's okay, it's okay. You can go, you can go.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. So sorry, Mike Couture with Global National. Thank you for taking the time. So does that then mean that it has to be verified by yourselves and going back to Wet'suwet'en to verify that the RCMP are withdrawn? Or is there somebody there that can do it? And the other question is another one of your demands now to meet with the Prime Minister, or is it okay to meet with Ministers Bennett and Miller?
I think for your first one, the Canadian press and the RCMP, the government, they have their intel. So in order for this to be verified, we have people on the ground that are watching. We'd certainly like to see the physical movement. The way they came in the middle of winter is the way we want them to get out. We want the trailers all moved out of there. We want everything that has to do with the RCMP out of there. And that we're firm about. And with the Prime Minister, definitely it will be a fruitful meeting. And if so, with his ministers. So there we go. That's a nation-to-nation talk that we'd like to build on.
Right, but just to clarify, does it have to be the Prime Minister, or will you be okay with Ministers Miller and Bennett instead?
Minister and Bennett, the Minister Bennett and Miller.
Is there a chance that we won't see the encampment here in Tyendinaga come down if CGL does not withdraw from Wet'suwet'en territory, or is it just strictly RCMP presence?
We have been consistent this entire time, the last 14, 15 days. It's all blur. And that is that the RCMP must get out. We haven't added any other conditions except that once that occurs, then we've committed with the Minister of Indigenous Services, sorry, it's the old term, for additional meetings to discuss and to negotiate a safe strategy, like exit strategy or plan. And until, so that's where that's at. There's no other demands or extra stuff on our part on that.
I have a question. I just want to honor you for your continued stance to fight for the rights, your Indigenous rights. As a Métis and half and half, what question would you say to the Canadians that are actually standing behind you? What would you like to say to them? The non-Indigenous Canadians that are standing with you guys.
Well, it's very simple. I think they have the same vision, the same values, the same concerns for their children and their grandchildren, and we really appreciate that. We're definitely looking at keeping the pristine waters and our environment the way we're introduced into it by our Creator, and we'd certainly like to leave it the way it is for our grandchildren. And I think that's the same vision that some of our supporters and the non-Indigenous supporters have the same feelings and same visions.
If the OPP do decide to move in and enforce the injunction here in Tyendinaga, what is the plan for the encampment?
I think that's a matter of national security.
Excuse me, Chief, you spoke about having nation-to-nation conversations with the government in both BC and the federal government. Does that also include some in your territory who support this pipeline? Because we understand that there are some people who were okay with the pipeline being built.
You know, in our culture, it doesn't matter what the opinions are on other people. We still hold Wakos to each other. Wet'suwet'en people hold Wakos to each other. We hold great respect to each other. It doesn't matter what comes between us. In the end, we still respect one another.
I'm just wondering the level of concern for the people who are standing up, and we're hearing reports that, you know, there's a growing level of vigilantism, and people coming from the outside and trying to hurt people who are standing up for your rights. And I just wonder how concerned you are about that, and the safety of people out at these encampments.
You know, I think the underlying issue in Canada is exactly that. The only difference that's happening nowadays is that there's a lot of social media, and also when we shook the so-called vote, and it all of a sudden surfaced the racism and the prejudice that was hidden all these years. So there's no difference at all. It just doesn't phase us at all. But yes, we are concerned with our supporters, what they're doing out there, what they believe in. And it's all a matter of choice for those people, whatever they're going to do. But it all boils back to your rule of law. When your rule of law applies, it applies to everybody, not just certain groups.
Signs at these camps that say reconciliation is dead. I'm wondering if you truly believe that and what you think the path forward is.
It never existed.
In our language, again, Wakos is top priority for us. Wakos is the first thing that we indicate to any visitor, strangers, and we welcome them. And then if these people come in and show Wakos, and the closest word that we can come up with in the English language for Wakos is respect. If they show respect, definitely we'll start talking. We'll start looking at a dialogue. But when you go back to your simple negotiation techniques, respect, trust comes first. And if those two are not around, how can you come up with a dialogue? Simple as that.
Yeah, Trudeau said this morning that the demonstrations going on across the country could be a hindrance to reconciliation. What do you have to say about that?
In your Constitution, it says that the Royal Proclamation is a founding document. And a big issue that's not being noticed or not being talked about, or none of you asked about, is why are the RCMP in territory that Canada doesn't have a treaty with? The hindrance is invading territories that are not under the dominion of Canada. Your Prime Minister has committed a crime. And the whole world needs to be being loud about it. I don't think I have more to say on that one.
No more questions.
Done?
Yep.
We're done.
I just wanted to.
Oh, he's not. He's got a statement to make.
I just want to address the words that the Prime Minister said, that these talks or the dialogue is one-sided. And the one-sidedness started ever since Confederation. All of the things that are going on today have been one-sided. When you take a look at the consultation process, and the consultation process is set up by governments, with no inclusion of the Aboriginal voice inside there. When you take a look at the negotiations that we were doing, and it was all one-sided. They had a predetermined, when you go across the Rockies, when we're discussing treaties, it's one-sided. We were set in place with negotiation of the outcome being 5% of, it's called the 5% land selection model. So when you take a look at that, they had a predetermined outcome on it. When we take a look at the environmental processes, do you see the Aboriginal footprint in the environmental process? Again, lopsided. You don't see the Aboriginal voice in there. So when you take a look at all of the processes that we've got in Canada, and you take a look at all of the regulations that they're putting together, you're not going to find the Aboriginal voice in there. So when Prime Minister Trudeau is talking about a lopsided dialogue, one-sided, he better take a look at the way they've been treating the Aboriginal people ever since Confederation. Thank you.
So there are some people that have set up one-on-one interviews, and we will take those in moments. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate all of